We're all set.
Good evening, all. I'm Hector Gunther, Chair of the Town of Barnstable Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee, or CFAC. Today is our April 28th, 2025 meeting. We meet every other Monday throughout the year, except for July and August, when we only meet once in each of those months. In accordance with Mass General Law, I have to ask if anybody is recording this meeting, if so, to make him or herself known. And hearing none, Chris L., can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Here.
Jim, not here, Tom,
Present.
Jeremy,
Present.
Chris King,
Here.
and I am present, so we have a quorum.
Great. I see we have Councilor Lutke as well, which is great. Hello, Betty. Before public comment, Betty, do you have any comments or topics you want to broach with the committee?
Nope, I don't have anything. Thank you, Hector.
Okay. Any members of the public have comments? If not, the first item on the agenda, number 3, is approval of the minutes from 2 weeks ago. Do I have a motion to accept?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
And second, thank you. Any comments on the minutes from April 14th?
No.
I actually have a couple. Teresa, on page 2, where you list the presenter for the police department, why don't we put her first name, Jean, Chief Jean, Jean Chalice. And then on page 3, communications from staff, first bullet, third line after the word 2026, I think you meant to write plan, not play. And other than that, Teresa, I think it's a fine job. And again, I would ask if any comments, corrections from the committee. If not, Chris L., please call the roll.
Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris King,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, folks. On to topic 4A, update from the operating budget subcommittee on the report. Since there's no chair, I'll just throw it open to whoever wants to start off the discussion. What updates should we hear from the subcommittee?
Well, I'll start off. We're as we get more budget information from and the operating budget is almost completed from the town manager. We have begun drafting our respective parts. So I'll let my part was the front matter, the revenue, and the general fund, and I am just about complete. So we can.
Great. Any other members of the committee want to comment on their respective sections?
My part was the schools department, and that's complete.
Excellent.
Got the police and DPW. I'm just waiting for those numbers. I mean, it doesn't change much year to year as far as the content, so just waiting for those numbers, and then I'll have mine all written up, ready to go.
Okay.
And I have responsibility for the enterprise fund and the fixed costs. And the enterprise fund section is essentially done. A few more items I need to write up to tighten up the discussion, especially around the sewer and CWMP. And then on the fixed cost, I'm waiting for information from the budget.
Excellent. Thank you all for that. I'm curious to know if there have been any particular issues that have come up. I remember from last year's operating subcommittee, one of the topics that was raised as a matter of concern was the amount of dipping into reserves that the town is doing to make the budget balance. And I wonder if that is a topic that's been focused on this year.
I think
Well,
it
I'll
clearly
jump in.
has. Yeah.
What we've done is we've had a very solid discussions about each portion of it. And each section has had some comments, summary, and concerns. And our looking ahead section will address what you're talking about.
Great.
Yeah.
And in terms of the amount of tapping into reserves this year, is that total? How has that changed versus last year? Are we dipping into reserves more in fiscal 2026 than we did in 2025?
Well, the revenue figures indicate that fiscal 25 will have a $10 million surplus.
Mhm.
And so a good part of it will go into the reserves.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the situation is, if I might say, less stressful than last year.
Yeah, we go year to year, as you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Mr. Chairman,
this year
if
looks
Please,
pretty good.
please, Mark.
if I may, we haven't finalized the budget yet, so we haven't
Mhm.
finalized the number that we would be using for balancing the operating budget. But as Lillian stated, we anticipate to generate more than what we used to balance the fiscal year 25 budget. In essence, creating more reserves.
That's excellent. And the 10 million surplus, where did that derive from? What were the principal parts of that?
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of actual revenues exceeding our budget estimates, as well as unspent appropriations across all departments and
Really?
fixed costs. Yep.
Uh-huh. 10 million, that sounds like that's a larger than usual number, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yes, it
Huh.
is.
Well, that's good news. That's good news. We'll get to discussion of the forecast a little later on this meeting, but I'm pleasantly surprised that we had more money than we knew what to do with this year versus last year. So that's excellent. Any
Believe me,
other?
they
Go
know
ahead,
what to
sorry.
do with it. It's not wasted anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments on the operating budget? If I could ask, what is your proposed timing for circulating to the full committee and then getting our vote?
So, Lillian, you want to take that?
Okay, the town manager is going to release his proposed budget probably in a couple of weeks officially. And Mark has told us that we have till the end of May.
Ah,
So our drafts are in good shape, and we will be having another meeting next Wednesday. And there we have it. We will bring it to the full committee soon.
great. All right. Well, that sounds good. And it needs to be approved by what date? The end of May?
We're going to try for the end of May.
At your
Okay,
last meeting in May. So the timeline is this: the town manager submits his proposed budget to the council on May 14th, and the public hearings on the operating budget begin on June 5th. And so we could bring forward CFAC's report at your last meeting in May, and then distribute that to the council in advance of the June 5th public hearing, so they'll have an opportunity to see your report before we act
Right.
on public hearings.
okay, great. Thank you so much for everybody for all your work on this. Any other comments on the budget, the operating budget subcommittee? Anything else you want to bring up to the full committee? All right, well, moving right along, Tom, you expressed interest in alacrity tonight, so we are moving along 11 minutes after 6. Go to topic 4B. Mark, a couple of weeks ago, you circulated a preliminary CWMP funding model update. And tonight we're not going to discuss the model in any detail, but I thought maybe it'd be helpful if you gave the committee just an overview with a focus on what changes have been made to the model, and then just sort of just general overview of changes in sort of the overall fiscal situation going forward versus last year's model. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the changes that we incorporated into the model is the new 5-year capital improvement plan for the CWMP. Because now, of course, we have a new year, fiscal year 2030. And so we took all the project costs that were submitted for the 5-year period of FY26 through fiscal year 30, and we built that into the model so that we can analyze whether or not we can afford to fund all of those projects with the existing resources that we've dedicated for this program. And then we built in a little bit more functionality on the ability to adjust the assessment itself if the town council decided that they wanted to increase the cap on assessments or decrease the cap on assessments. We built in that functionality to show you what the financial impact would be on that, from that. We've also built in the functionality of what if the town council were to approve a flow neutral land use policy, which would make us eligible for 0% loans on most of our projects that get submitted to the DEP for the comprehensive wastewater management plan. So that change has been incorporated into the model. And all the other existing assumptions that were in there, there's about 20 different assumptions, if you recall, where you can adjust the annual rate increase or decrease in meals taxes, rooms taxes, whether or not Park City Wind project goes forward and we receive another $16 million or whatever number it may be for that project. So those are the major changes. And if you'd like, I can pull the model itself up and share it on my screen to show you what it currently looks like, kind of like a base case. And we could go from there. I thought perhaps we could have the committee, like you did last time, tell me what different types of scenarios you would like to see, and we can run those using this model and then report back to the town council on those changes and assumptions like we did last time.
Yeah. So I was struck by a couple of things. One is that you built in 10% declines for meals and rooms tax for the upcoming fiscal year, and
Yeah,
no
that was kind
adoption.
of like a worst case scenario. I was
Right.
playing around with a worst case scenario, and I happened to send you that scenario. I don't think we're going to see 10% declines in meals and
Right.
rooms taxes, but
Right.
just to show you,
Yeah.
that the model has the functionality built in to allow us to accomplish that. And the one that I did share with you all is kind of like a worst case scenario. 10% decline,
So you would call it not a base case, but a downside case?
kind of like a downside, yeah, downside scenario. And that includes 10% declines in meals and rooms taxes. It includes nothing coming from the Park City Wind project. And it includes the town council not adopting a flow neutral policy. And so we would pay, a higher interest rate. And it included funding the FY26 project request, which totaled $62 million, which were just approved by the town council. And even under those circumstances, the model shows that we can finance or fund and pay back all the loans that are issued, that will be issued for all previously approved projects, as well as what the council just approved for fiscal year 26. And so the good news is that if all those bad things happened, we're still in a financial position where we can pay back all the loans on the loans that'll be issued for all the projects that have been previously approved, plus the ones that just got approved at the most recent capital meeting, council meeting.
So that's very helpful to know. So go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to ask, I assume then that's the kind of relevant discussion for us to be having. So, does the model functionality anticipate things like, it's been an interesting first 100 days in the new administration. There are, impacts on sales revenues for automobiles and tourism and a lot of stuff that could ultimately impact us, property values, interest rates, blah, blah, blah. But I assume for us, the relevant topic is, does the model contemplate the things that could impact what the financial projections could look like, as opposed to what will they look like? I assume the discussion is around the functionality of the model and not necessarily around what we think is going to happen. I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Yes, I think that's really what we're trying to do here is to illustrate that the model has this type of functionality so that you can, you can make assumptions that, tourism, we're going to have negative impacts on tourism, potentially based on what's happening. We could see there's also a factor in there for inflation. The tariffs could end up resulting in project cost increases because of the tariffs. And so you can adjust your inflation factor to increase your project costs, assuming that event would take place. And so there is the functionality that allows you to take into account, everything that's happening at the federal level, including, what if they were to start dropping interest rates to try to, improve the economy like they did the last time when we had the pandemic. And that would in fact impact our investment rate of returns, most likely, because we'd earn less on our cash deposits. And so you can change that assumption if you wanted to. So I tried to build as much functionality into the model as possible that would take into account all these different factors, so that you can see if we had a drop in meals and rooms taxes, a drop in interest rates, how much more general fund taxation would we need to contribute to the program to keep it going, for example.
Got it. Thank you.
Mark, what I liked about the model, I liked a lot of the improvements he made. The original model, I think, only had a set of assumptions that applied to all years, and now you allow me to vary the assumptions by year, which is great. And also, it's a great additional piece of information, the new line in the chart that shows outstanding debt.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot about that. I put another line in there for all the outstanding debt, because that came up last time we reviewed this report, is where's the town's total debt going to go? once we issued all these loans. And, we're going to have about $225 million of outstanding debt by 2032 with everything that's been approved to date.
That's
We had $170 million last year, another $62 million this year. Plus the year before that, I think we had, $30 million for Centerville North Phase. So it's a lot of debt.
You said the town's total debt. Are you saying that the CWMP total debt or the total town?
CWMP. Yes, thank
Okay.
you. CWMP total debt, not the town's total.
But it will be
Sure.
the lion's share.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, I've got the model up on my screen here and I went to tab 7. And I'm just curious, the financing method in all years is the revolving loan fund with a pretty competitive interest rate. But if it is it accurate to say that we could finance all the projects that have been approved for the revolving loan fund, or will the town need necessarily to tap the general obligation market for some?
Yes. So on tab 7, you'll notice that starting with the projects for fiscal year 27 and 28, we're making an assumption that those will be general obligation bond issues and not loans through the trust. Because as you know, we're capped at $50 million a year
Right.
what we can finance through the trust.
Right.
And with everything that we've approved to date, we're going to be borrowing $50 million a year through, I think it's 2032. And so we won't be able to get any more projects on DEP's intended use plan until we've issued all of those loans. And so the way the cash flow works out on that is that we would finance everything that's been approved to date through the trust. But because of the dollar amount, we're looking at the 27 fiscal year. Hector, if you go to tab 8, looking at fiscal years 27 and 28 capital programs to be financed through the general obligation bond market. And then we can start submitting projects through the trust again to finance them through the trust for the 29 and fiscal year 30 projects. Now that's, if they hold true to that $50 million cap. Sometimes what happens is that other communities who had projects approved through the trust, they end up not going forward with the project or going forward with a project for a lesser amount, which creates more funding capacity for the trust to add more projects to the schedule, potentially Barnstable projects, if they're high scoring. So, it's all a moving target. Nothing's set in stone. And so trying to, create a model that allows us to, make changes because of all these moving targets. And I think that's, that's what we attempted to do here.
Yeah. Well, that's all excellent. I'm trying to find where is the assumption for the interest rate on the GO borrowings. Is it on tab 7
Yep,
somewhere?
you go on tab 7. So anything highlighted in green, you have the ability to adjust. So if you go to tab 7, and if you look at the interest rate, you click on that cell that's highlighted in green for Long Beach expansion, for example. That's an FY27 project that's going to be funded through a general obligation.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
You click on that cell and a drop-down menu pops up where you can select what interest rate you want to borrow that money at.
Okay.
Anywhere from 0 to 5%.
Right. Okay. Right now the model is set. It shows a 0 subsidy and a 4% interest rate. But those are all, as you say, variable. We can play with those assumptions.
That's correct.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I do have one question. You mentioned that this incorporates all the capital projects that were approved by the town council. I apologize, I didn't have a chance to watch the video of the last town council meeting, but I think I did hear that town council deferred 2 or 3 of the proposed capital projects. Mark, what were
we with
those?
yeah, we withdrew 6 projects.
6.
We withdrew the airport project for hard stands. The project for the old Barnstable Fairgrounds Golf Course maintenance building was withdrawn. And then there were 4 public works projects for, I think there were sidewalk expansions along the Park City Wind route. And those were withdrawn because we don't know, when the Park City Wind project is, if and when it's going to go forward. And so we felt it was, prudent to withdraw those items until we have more information as to when that project will go forward, even if it goes forward.
Right.
So,
Right.
but the projects for the 2 projects that were, or the several projects that were recommended for the CWMP program were all approved. I think there were 5 that were cash funded and 2 borrowings.
And the sidewalk expansions, those are along the routes that the sewers will be put in, even if Park City Wind doesn't go forward. So the idea was that we would forego spending on the sidewalks. We would just open up the road, put in the sewers. Park City Wind, the assumption in that case wouldn't be developed, and then the road would be closed up, but no sidewalks would be added. Is that correct?
To be determined.
Yeah.
That decision has not been made, not to
Right,
do the
but that's the scenario that was considered, I suspect. And that's why the sidewalk, because the sidewalk expansion, I mean, that's a certain expenditure that, and I don't know what the amount was, but the council decided to forego that. Forego
I would just
approving that
recommend that
amount.
you go back to that council meeting and Director Santos gave an explanation as to why DPW was recommending to withdraw those 4 items. And I don't want to paraphrase him. I'd rather go back to the meeting and take a look at what he said.
Okay.
I suggest you do that.
That's a great suggestion, and I'll do that. Great. Well, I agree with Tom and Chuck that the model is substantially improved. I guess I would pose to the committee, when shall we spend some more time at the next meeting discussing the model, playing with the assumptions, or would you like to wait till the operating budget subcommittee has concluded their work? Anybody have an opinion one way or another?
I'd focus on the subcommittees.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the model, Mark? I think it's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for circulating it in advance. And if any developments crop up that would cause us to revise this sort of conservative case, I'm sure you'll bring it to our attention.
Yeah, and if in the meantime, I'll offer to the committee members, if you have any questions, if you have some time where you're playing around with the model and you have any questions, you feel free to give me a call and we can walk through the assumptions and how it works.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that sounds good. So if no more comments on the funding model, why don't we move on to staff communications, agenda item 5. Mark, do you have anything else you want to bring up before the committee?
Yeah, just that we have the continuation of the capital improvement plan. Public hearings are this week. Thursday night, we'll have the school department there. I think they have 17 projects on the list, and we'll be conducting public hearings on all the school's capital items for fiscal year 26 this Thursday evening. And then we anticipate having the first read of the operating budget appropriation orders and in the May 15th meeting, where they will be referred to the first meeting in June for the beginning of the public hearings. And last year we adopted the operating budget in one meeting. But in the event that we need two meetings, the council meets again, I believe, on June 27th. So we would have to finish up the operating budget at that meeting if we don't finish it on June 5th. That's all.
Okay. Great. All right. We're moving right along. Tom, I hope you're happy. Um, any other comments? Any matters the committee wants to bring up? Any members of the committee? At the last meeting, I put out a request for people to think about possible candidates for CFAC. We have one vacancy now, of course, and I've been meaning to call several of you to pick your brains. Jeremy, I might call you over the next couple of days, some evening, and with the thought that you might know some folks on the younger side, so we can get some more next generation blood into this committee. So Jeremy, look for a phone call from a 914 area code number. That would be me.
I will look forward to it.
Great. Thank you. And meantime, if anyone else has any suggestions, Betty Lucky gave me a name. Betty, I called the fellow that you suggested, and I haven't heard back. So I've given him 3 or 4 days. I'm gonna call him again. But I dropped your name, and maybe he's traveling or something. So we'll see that. Chris King, I don't know if you're pretty new on the committee. I don't know if you're in your travels in Barnstable, if you've encountered any potential candidates for CFAC. Please keep your eyes and ears open.
I will. And just a thought that came to mind is that the Barnstable Academy that's put on, there's
The
a police.
Leadership Academy.
Thank you, the Leadership
Yep.
Academy.
Yeah.
They do a very soft job of selling openings that are on committees, and I would, maybe I could reach out to the person that runs the academy and maybe ask for maybe a little bit more of a directed sell. We
Right.
have these positions open, and consider looking at these positions.
Right.
The reason why I bring it up is that I was going to volunteer for a different committee, and there were a number of people that were going for that committee, so it was there was over interest, and I was asked to look at this committee and possibly join this committee. I didn't even know it existed, and so that's part of. I think I'll reach out and see if we can get a little help from the Leadership Academy.
Are you in the Leadership Academy now, or did you just conclude that
No, I concluded it last year.
last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took that, I think, pretty soon after I moved here in 2018. And I thought it was excellent. I also did the Police Academy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have not done the Police Academy, but the Leadership Academy had a little bit of police, and that was
Yeah.
good enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
But-
Lillian, I know that you recruited Mr. Sproul for the committee, so please keep your eyes and ears open for other candidates, as I know you probably do.
Well, we have been dogging this guy for about 4 years now. And he retired, and then he had to take care of some other things. And we
Mhm.
think that he's probably finally ready to rejoin CFAC. He was a former chair,
Ah,
and he was also on TFAC. So we'll see.
okay,
Yeah,
great. Well,
we'll
thank
see.
you for that. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. Great. All right. Well, that's a subject that's on my mind now, but so I'd appreciate if each of you can keep your eyes and ears open. And what I've suggested to the people I've spoken to is that they attend a committee meeting or two, and of course, explore the CFAC website. You could also send them a couple of our budget reports from last year, or the capital budget report from this year. And again, my vision for this committee is that we become, more front and center as an advisor to town council than perhaps we've been in the past. And so that's part of my sell, that, we're not just wonky financial types, but that we're trying to bring some expertise to bear to assist the members of the town council who, as Betty would say, sometimes feel like they're drinking from a fire hose with all the information, all the decisions they have to make. So just keep it in mind, please. All right. Any other topics for people want to bring up tonight? Don't be shy. Don't all jump in at once. Okay, great. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Great. Chris, please call the roll.
Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris King,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Great. Thank you all. We'll see you 2 weeks from tonight. Same
Thank you.
time, same place. So long.